This June's seismic activity. Yeah, just making sure everyone's here. Is everyone here? Everyone's here, right? So this is the second of two events to answer the rhetorical question, is tech disrupting the music industry? As if we don't know the answer to that yes, no question. But, you know, disrupting, I don't know, maybe that word's too strong. Basically, every month we launch a seismic activity. It's an online event around one of the topics that we focus on at the Music Tectonics conference or the Music Tectonics podcast. We always like to dive into the shifts beneath the surface of music and tech, music and innovation. And so you're at one of our monthly events. At some point here, we'll stop doing monthly events, and the only thing to do will be to come to the Music Tectonics conference. But before I tell you about that, I'm sure you know, I'm Dmitry, the CEO and founder of Rock, Paper, Scissors. We're a PR firm that specializes in music and technology, music and innovation. And we love building the music innovation community. And that's why we do things like the seismic activities and the Music Tectonics conference and podcast. And before we dive into all the fun content for today, I'd like to let everyone know that early bird badges are on sale now for the Music Tectonics conference. It's happening October 24th to 26th in Santa Monica, California. My notes say October 24th to 36th. We might try that sometime. We just sold out of our super early bird badges. Thanks to all of you who bought badges. And I see some of you here, I know you did. But be sure to secure your early bird badge before the price rises again. You can find it at musictectonics.com/conference. And as you know, if you've been to a seismic activity before, we love an active chat. So don't hesitate to introduce yourself, say hello to a bestie, throw in your LinkedIn URL, your website, what you're working on. And obviously during the panels and demos and conversations, feel free to jump into the chat with your questions and your additions too. It's all about building the music innovation community here at Music Tectonics. So even before AI took the music industry by storm, the music field was undergoing a huge transformation where more artists have been entering the industry, recording and releasing music, playing with new instruments and tools, and flooding the streaming services with songs. The laptop as studio had already changed everything. And the recording industry exploded with more recording artists and producers. But something else was changing too. Humans have always been influenced by everything else around them. And a new generation has emerged that grew up on video games and music videos and social media. And when I interviewed Teenage Engineering on the Music Tectonics podcast, they talked about the role of the miniaturization of technology thanks to the emergence and growth of smartphones and gaming hardware. That all turned into new types of musical instruments being created. And we're seeing an explosion in these form factors, software and hardware. If you can make an instrument that makes a sound, someone out there is going to want to play it, mess with it, turn it into a professional calling, whatever it is. And we've been using AI in music production for quite a while. We just haven't called it that, or we haven't known exactly how it works. So add that into the mix now, and there's another revolution of music creation happening right before our eyes. Today's event is a celebration and dive into all the ways tech is disrupting and transforming music making. And as I said, if you like this, you will love our in-person conference this October in Santa Monica on the beach. All right, enough of my musings here. We're going to kick this off with a panel discussion, new gear for creators. I'd like to bring on Tristra Yeager, our Chief of Strategy at Rock, Paper, Scissors, one of my besties. She's been with us for 17 years. Tristra, thanks so much for being here. I'll hand it over to you for the panel.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me moderate. I'm not known for my moderation, so I'm often immoderate in some of my communications. But here I am today with three really exciting thinkers in this space. And I'm just going to introduce them quickly, and then we can get to the actual conversation since we don't have a ton of time, and this is a huge field. So today we have Russ Gavin, who is the co-founder and COO of Jacktrip Labs, a virtual studio that can link up to 500 musicians simultaneously at ridiculously low latency. It's pretty impressive. We have James Hill, who is the dreamer-in-chief at music tech startup Ever FM, where songs change every time they're played. And last but definitely not least, we have Tim Exile, who comes from a background as an electronic musician and as a producer, and he's an all-around music tech instigator. He's really fun to follow on LinkedIn. And he launched Endlesss with 3 S's. It's a collaborative music making app back in 2016, and Endless's most recent product, which some of you may have seen at NAMM, is a beat-making arcade game that will knock your socks off. But unfortunately, we're not going to get to play around with that today. We're going to talk more generally about music creation, gear, and the tools that have arisen recently and what they mean for the business, and also hopefully get into some of my favorite parts, which is speculating about the future of music creation. So first up, Dimitri listed off a bunch of tools and kind of set a framework for us to think about what we mean when we're talking about gear and tools. But I want to hear from each of you what you think about when you think of that. What falls into the category of a music creation tool, and what feels new about these tools? So do you mind if I start with you, Russ? I'm going to tap you first.
Sure, no problem.
Alphabetical order.
Yeah, I mean, I think a new tool is usually something. A lot of the new tools are actually adding opportunity to people who previously may not have felt they had that opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's new to them. And then on the other side, there's new ways of the consuming of it. I mean, I think there's such a broad definition of what is new because we have to start with where people are, right? And there's a lot of the world who are just finding out about things that people in this room have known about for 10 years, while simultaneously finding out about things that just came onto the scene 10 minutes ago. And in a way, it's that, I don't know, it's such a broad definition because you got to meet people where they're at. I imagine for this space, the newness of AI, you know, that's the buzzy thing right now, but the speed that Jacktrip and companies like ours are kind of leveraging to connect people in ways they haven't done before, that's new. And I think yeah, it's a little rambly, but it's a very broad definition, but it makes it pretty fun to talk about.
Tim, how are you seeing, how we should define the space? Because you've been thinking about this in a very unique way.
Yeah, well, my soundbite that I seem to trot out at every opportunity is that the future of music is not an industry, it's a game.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last 2 decades, gaming has been eating music's lunch. We've got to be real about that. Gaming revenues have 10x'd, music had maybe 2x'd. And I think gaming is getting something right that I don't think music has been. And I think music has an opportunity to get this right. And this is what gaming is great is bringing people together to play together. This is where culture has always formed through people coming together to play together. Music used to lead the charge on that when we used to meet in actual venues to do that. And in the online world, gaming is leading the charge. So, from my perspective, any new generation tools must find new ways for us to interact musically online. I think that's where the future is.
So gear needs to have a multiplayer mode. I love it. James, how are you seeing this space evolve?
Well, I mean, as a musician and a producer, I mean, that's where my head's at most of the time. I'm coming at it from that angle. I mean, there is kind of nothing new as much as all these new tools are coming out. I mean, if I can bang a couple of rocks together, like I'm happy. I'm more interested in how people are actively misusing the tools. I mean, I don't think we really get to know what the tools are until people start misusing and jailbreaking and hot wiring the circuit breaking. Like until that starts happening, we don't really know what the tools are. So infrequently do tools get used for exactly the purpose that they were built for. I mean, one example I heard was the wah-wah pedal was invented to replace the plunger for brass players. Well, what trombonist ever used a wah-wah pedal? It went straight to guitarists and we never look back. I mean, it's not until we see those use cases and those creative jailbreaks that I think I really start to get excited about new tools. It doesn't matter if they came out 10 years ago or 10 minutes ago. It's the creative use of them that I'm really more interested in.
When we talk more specifically about pieces of gear or software or other, handy rocks that you are excited by recently? Like, are there some new directions that you see emerging, new kinds of new product categories, for lack of a better way to put it? And I'm going to start with Tim this time. Are there, to create this multiplayer mode, do we need new devices? Do we need new kinds of software? Are there new things that you feel like, oh, if the industry could just get this right, we could totally unlock multiplayer?
Yeah, I mean, the format of what we expect to consume music in nowadays is, I wouldn't say it's very multiplayer friendly. So there are lots of very good collaborative DAWs out there. BandLab, Soundtrap, and many other sort of lesser known ones. And they are places where people, multiple musicians can come and kind of coordinate or find some consensus on the truth of the track they're trying to produce. But it's not very good for interaction. I think, to me, playing together really means I do a thing, then you do a thing, then I do a thing, responds to the thing that you did, and we, through going back and forth, or even like in this sort of multi-way collaboration, multi-way conversation, we come to a space that we didn't expect to come to. And that's the thing that I think, well, I mean, this is what we're really trying to crack at Endlesss, is finding a way, a new way of representing music and musical ideas, that we're not doing what Jacktrip is doing, which is the laudable, it's the good work of trying to get around network latency. We've kind of engineered our way around having to solve that problem, in order to try and present a solution where we can really musically interact with each other. But I think, I mean, in my mind, that's the key thing to try and crack. How can we move away from this idea that music is a song and it starts at second 0 and ends at 3 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever it is, and it's very polished, it's been mixed, it's been mastered. Understanding how we can unbundle that, because that's a very high bar, and we're not going to get to multiplayer by trying to achieve that.
Russ, I wanted to bring you in here because we've had some conversations around Jacktrip, and the Jacktrip sort of started thinking about the network as itself an instrument, and as maybe as a piece of gear, like a massive worldwide piece of gear. And that's sort of how you approach solving some of these latency and other issues that let acoustic musicians, singers, etc., collaborate in a way that doesn't feel like horribly confusing and janky. Maybe you can speak for a second about how creating this ability to collaborate is actually a piece of gear that you've, or the way, just tell us a bit about your philosophy, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, the original creator of Jacktrip is a wonderful colleague of mine named Chris Chafe, and he's just one of these big brain guys who literally in 2003 was like, I wonder what the internet sounds like, right? and it kind of began the whole Jacktrip journey literally 20 years ago, of understanding that the space that you create music in is always and has always impacted the music itself. If you're in an indoor venue versus an outdoor venue, you run the board a little different, right? And the idea that the internet is going to become a part of that has been something Chris and colleagues have been thinking about for a long time. And it's one reason why core to Jacktrip, like literally the second thing after connecting people, was allowing them to manipulate the audio in the space within the various, and that's simple audio that people can understand, like reverb and things like that. But it was kind of fundamental. And I want to react to something that I believe Tim said about the multiplayer piece of all of this. The thing that I think is coolest about the next 10 years is, for the last 20 years, like music really got into this one player mode, right? Like back in the day when you had a video game that was one player and you went in and you're like, oh, this is cool. And then you added 2 players. And now my kid plays Fortnite with 7,000 people every night, right? And I see music on a similar trajectory. And the tools that we're talking about here are taking it from like, okay, the compute technology we have allows me to do something in this one player space. Okay, well, now we're going to go into this space that is the internet. and we're going to have this multiplayer thing that has been really, really unavailable. Again, people talk about the gaming piece of it. Like, arcades were kicking our butt right as soon as they came into existence in the 80s, because it was a place people could go and do a thing and do it together and observe people doing the thing. And I think as we become less afraid of the virtual music making space, that's a beautiful inevitability that I'm excited for.
James, your Ever FM does some interesting stuff that's more on the music experience side, and creation and experience are these interlocking, I don't know, tangoing sides of things, and it's easy for us to forget about what it feels like to listen to this music and how the gear influences that. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that, and how, like, as a creator, you're thinking about the listening experience? Maybe you want to explain what Ever FM does too a little bit more.
Yeah, briefly, I can explain that it's basically recordings that change. That's the very short answer. But what Ever FM has done is we've created a post-DAW step in that production chain, where we're not trying to replace DAWs, but once you've got your stems, you can bring them into Ever FM, and we've introduced basically a new axis into mixing. Instead of just having your tracks stacked up and your timeline this way, we've introduced kind of this probability axis, right? So it's like, how likely is this segment to actually be heard? How likely is it that it'll be replaced by a different take? How likely is it that it will play at all? And so you can start to have songs that are continually reassembling themselves in accordance with the artist's vision for the song, and and the feeling is, my strong feeling is that broader canvas will express the song more fully than a static recording ever could. And so that's what Ever FM has been doing. But I think this is not so different to what Tim and Russ are talking about, because in a sense, what I hear them saying is, as much as we're moving forward with the technology, we're actually reaching back to pick up something that we might have lost. In the case of, well, both Tim and Russ, it's collaborative music making. The joy of, like, anybody who's ever sat around a campfire knows what we have lost and what we're trying to recapture. As we move forward, we're trying to reach back for this thing that we don't want to leave behind. Right. And I think Ever FM is also tapping into a very similar forward and back, kind of back to the future ethos, which is, for most of human history, songs were ephemeral. They changed constantly. They were never the same way twice. There was no such thing as a definitive recording. And with the advent of, static recording, we kind of lost that. We gained a lot of things, but we lost that feeling of a song being an idea, just sort of a spirit that floats around in our world, and that is only alive when it's being performed. There's something really beautiful about that we have lost, but we can't go back. Like, you can't just go backwards. You have to move forward, but reach back using the most cutting edge technology. Reach back and reclaim some of the magic of music that is ever changing. And so my point to that is, I think we're all doing a similar thing, pushing forward, like inexorably forward, but always reaching back to reclaim something that we just don't want to leave behind.
That's really awesome. And I have to say, this is the easiest moderation job ever, because you guys are just like spitting wisdom left and right. We have a few more minutes, and because this is a music biz kind of event, we have to talk about money. What are how should we think about revenue in this new universe we're sketching out here? How are you guys thinking about it in broad terms? And where do you see artists, maybe even fans, starting to earn from these new modalities? And what would that entail? Big question. Who wants to tackle that one? You want to go, Tim? You looked like you had a smile on your face when I asked that question. So
yeah. I mean, this stuff is important because musicians need to get paid, or at least I think I want to maybe row back a little bit from this idea of like musicians, but people who participate and lead and add value. I mean, I think I mean, community is such a buzzword right now, but I think it's rarely understood properly. But I think there are some really interesting emerging themes there. I mean, like I said early on, you know, gaming in terms of revenue, gaming is just smashing it out the park, because it knows that people value experiences. I think I find it really interesting that you know, social media has not really managed to generate revenue from the people who use the platform. It generates revenue from the advertisers. But then you've got this new breed of products, you know, that thinking about things in terms of servers, like Minecraft has servers, Discord has servers. You pay for Discord Nitro and you boost a server. And people are paying for these private, intimate spaces. And then they're building these kind of revenue generating opportunities around them through using Patreon, or, you know, in the days of Web3, people were using Discord to kind of create NFT drops and all of that kind of stuff. But I think the revenue opportunities are looking at, you know, the superpower of niche. In the days of social networks, niche was the way to die as a product because no one would adopt it.
Yeah.
I think in the future, niche is a superpower, like 1,000 or 1 million niche communities with spaces where they can go deep with each other. People are willing to pay for that. And people are willing to see, you know, the leaders in those intimate communities be compensated for providing, like, for holding that space for people to interact in a more meaningful way.
Fantastic. Now, I'm so sorry, James and Russ, but you guys each have a minute to give us a great business model for this new music industry. James, how are you imagining revenue coming from something like Ever.fm eventually?
Well, it's basically Ever.fm is part of this sort of post-streaming collection economy. You know, like we run on the blockchain. We're running on the idea of people seeing music as collectible items. The way we did, let's not forget, as recently as iTunes, where everybody had to download their own, version of that file. There are many revenue streams that are possible. What I will say is where I don't want it to go, and I would rather it not be another race to the bottom. I would rather it not be another race to, can we get $5, $4, $3, 50 cent collectibles happening at scale? I would rather see it. We have an opportunity to reset the clock a little bit and say, look, music is a valuable asset. Music is, I like to say, maybe the biggest return on investment is fun. ROI equals FUN is a t-shirt that I keep wanting to make. But I hope that it doesn't become another race to the bottom. We have a great opportunity to revalue music in the marketplace, in the place that it should be at. And I think we have all the tools to do it. The question is, will we be courageous enough to give music the value that we know it has?
Russ, what do you think about all this?
I don't like money. I'm kidding. I kid.
You're a music educator, so you have other callings.
I feel lucky that the bulk of my career has been in education, and I'm still in music education. I like exactly support. I support what James said. Sorry if I glitched there for a sec. Which is, it's got to be about fun. I think the idea that 99% of people who engage in music making are never going to make money on it is something we need to be pretty honest about. I mean, 99% of people who play football are never going to make money on it. 99% of people who do things that we claim are pleasurable. Like I'm in Las Vegas right now, full disclosure, right? And people go down there and they put some money down and they have a good time playing some cards, and they usually don't make money, but they consider the journey they consider that part of the gig. And it's not that we should not set up pathways for people to make money in the music space, but I think we need to stop defining that as the success for especially younger people. I talk to a lot of people and they're like, I'm a struggling artist. And I'm like, no, you're just struggling. Like, you haven't put in the time yet. Like, is that without being mean about it. But yeah. But I want to, one point about the monetization that I think is interesting, the idea that music creation became a one-player game, right? The idea that music consumption also did, and we don't talk about that a lot. If you read about Sony launching the Walkman, most of the executives at Sony thought it was going to fail because they didn't think people would want to listen to music one person at a time, because it had always been something you heard in mass. And I think we underestimate the impact of that. Or we don't, not the impact, but it's something, there's something connecting the monetization to the individualization. It's the niche thing that was talked about earlier. Now that if you do have 1,000 people that love you, you can be successful. And there's something there about, for the people who do want to make it a career, it should be available, just not easily.
Got it. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you guys for a really insightful and interesting conversation. And I know we didn't have a lot of time to go deep into the weeds, but I think there were some really amazing points. And yeah, hope everyone got something out of it.
Super cool. Yeah, great. Thanks, James, Russ, Tim, and Tristra. Great job on bringing out some amazing pieces of this conversation. And, this is all to get your brains going and get some ideas here, but we also want to experience some music innovation here. So we've got two amazing innovative companies that are actually going to show instead of tell. So we'd like to invite up to the stage Omar from Embodme, who is going to give us a demo. Embodme develops 3D touch and vision sensors for the future of human-computer interaction, but we've also had them on the podcast. We've done demos with them at other events, and you guys, if you haven't seen it yet, this is going to be great. Hey, Omar, welcome.
Hey, nice to meet you. Thank you, everyone, for this amazing talk. And yeah, James, I'm going to invest in your startup, ROI equal fund. That's something I definitely invest in.
Right on. I'll let you know when we're online.
Well,
and selling t-shirts.
For sure. Well, us at Embodme, we really looked at some of the limitations of recent modern electronic technologies in music, and we realized that there's been a gap in creating really expressive, acoustically similar sounds. We are trying to replicate what's so special about, the pianist playing a piano. For example, every note that they hit, every key that they play, there's a certain force that they tackle, and that certain force creates a different sound, even though if it's the same notes, but generating the same notes at different times creates a different sound that's very unique, especially to instrumentalists and acoustic players. So we at Embodme decided to really further this technology and create an FSR sensor, which is a force-sensitive resistor, to really become the ambassadors of trying to make electronic music fun. And this goes back to the ROI equal fun idea, because I think over the course of the last couple of years, we have lost kind of the fun element in a lot of technologies and music production. Usually people are overwhelmed. They feel alienated by a lot of gear that they have. And so our main motto going into this with our technology was to create a product that had the most important pillars, which are customizability and fun. And with our E-Ray Touch that has been 1 year on the market, used by the likes of Coldplay and Flume and Jean-Michel Jarre and many incredible artists, they have been able to express themselves and really see music as not just a way to mathematically create melodies or form of progressions, but really a way to experience another form of sense and sensing. The same way when you listen to a violinist playing or a celloist in a church or in a chapel, and you feel the vibrations inside of you, there's something unique about this experience. We try to replicate it in our product, and we're very happy and proud. I will showcase today a demo that we have created. It's a beautiful performance by some of our incredible artists. So I think I'm going to just share my screen. It has been released just now, actually, on YouTube as I'm giving this little talk. So let's, I'm not sure if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. All right.
Nice.
All right. That was just a little showcase of our product and what it can do. And it really, as you can see, it can be used by drummers, cellists, finger drummers, keyboard players. You can really customize it and create your own layout. You can even write your name on it and make it your own artistic brand. It's very versatile, and the main point is to really allow the musician to feel their music. And I think as a music producer myself, sometimes I feel disconnected from that, especially when it comes to electronic music. I'd love working with electricity, but I also miss the feeling of, you know, the senses used in acoustic instruments. So that's pretty much it. Thank you guys, and I hope you liked it.
Hey, Omar, that was great. Really great. Can I ask you maybe a follow-up question or two and see if anyone else has questions, since we have a couple minutes here? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
sweet.
sure.
Awesome. Anyone has questions, let us know, raise your hand or throw them in the chat. How much programming went into that we just saw?
Well, it's quite a lot of programming. We, first of all, on an engineering level, the FSR sensors, there are around 1,000 FSR sensors that were created above like an 18 millimeter silicone layer. So in terms of programming, it really has to do mostly with the way these things are placed. And we had a lot of test trials to see, you know, if ghost notes were there, and to really have the sensitivity to be very seamless, like a touch screen, but also, you know, if you play on a drumstick on an iPhone, you could break it easily. So we had to find a way to really make it the best of both worlds. So yeah.
I really meant like for the performer, say they buy the instrument, how much would they have to do to get to the place where they have the sounds that were just there that we just saw?
Well, I mean, it comes with a 16 layouts that are factory layouts, which you can just plug in and immediately start playing, connect directly to your DAW. We have an accompanied software, which is called the E-Ray Lab, which is basically kind of like Microsoft Paint. You kind of build your own canvas and create whatever you want. But other than that, I think in a good like 10-15 minutes setup, you can start playing something right away. And everything is on YouTube, so all the tutorials of the little geeky boys and girls and everyone in between, I think, can enjoy it, because there's a lot of potential, a lot of things you can go deep into also creating. So
yeah, super cool. We've got a question in the chat. Hemant asks, how did you guys identify the gap to come up with something as innovative as this?
That's a wonderful question. I think the gap resides in, first of all, seeing past technologies and their limitations, and really listening to the musician more than like the business structure. I think a lot of gear right now in the market are, yes, shiny and kind of cool to have and very expensive, but we really wanted something to be like an all-in-one kind of replication of what you can do with a violin, and also with a instrument, and also with a synth. And we wanted to, fuse all those things and add them into one controller, where you can have a key grid, a drum pad, a keyboard, you can have a fader, whatever you want. I like to personally, in my own shows, like to have my voice mapped to 3D faders, which I then can control as I'm moving my fingers, which really kind of fuses this relationship between the sound and the touch. And for the viewer and the performer and the audience, it's like a beautiful mindgasm that really kind of transcends senses. So it's really, really fun and really cool.
Yeah, I can imagine with the Apple Vision Pro type thing, if somebody's playing like you start to experience that 3D in real time with live music, that would be a blast. And it would give you the opportunity to kind of play with that as the artist, the performer as well. We got another question. How much did you pull in outside customers during the development phase to incorporate their needs versus designing the instrument to make yourself happy first? That's from Jerry Caron.
Wow, what amazing questions. You guys are incredible. I'm going to have to reread that because I lost it too. How much did you pull out in outside customers during the development phase to incorporate their needs? Okay, awesome. Well, we actually ran a Kickstarter to see where, to test the waters. Is it really going to attract some of the geeky musicians who really want solutions to their current problems? And we really went to research that. I think when going back to what James and everyone else was talking about, niching being the new kind of like future, I think when you really study your niche and you really listen to what they have to say, and as simple as like reading YouTube comments about other gear and seeing what people are looking for and what problems they're experiencing, makes you understand your own problems, and then you create solutions for that. And then we launched a Kickstarter and it was very successful, and from there we just took off from production, and it was really really exploding from there.
Yeah, super cool. We got one more. Sam Freeman says, I imagine the price point for this product is considerable. How are you hoping to scale it in a market where consumers are used to their music tools being cheap or free? Is your target audience DJs and well-off artists like the names you mentioned, or bedroom producers?
Well, it's actually both. I think how we can kind of, how we are scaling it is to really showcase the professional outcome that you can create, but also showcase that this is a type of gear that you do not expect to have in a way where you would just buy it and plug it in and use it to create your own music. I think you would have to be a musician to be able to understand what MPE is and what polyphonic pitch bend is and how to slide between notes. However, we have designed also very beginner friendly things that you can use. For example, in the touch itself, there's a feature where you can select your own scale and it would light up only the notes that are in scale, so that as you're playing, you are only playing what's in scale. So just things like this that really help the viewer. But I'm the head of marketing in the company and the creative director, and I made sure that while I'm marketing this, is very important to not market it to the geek musicians the same way we market it to the beginner market. I think these are very two different advertisement strategies and also focal points and where you want to tackle your products. I think the beginner market is very interested in expressivity and ease of use, and I think the nerdy musicians are more interested in customizability and advanced controls like API and MIDI 2.0 and all those things.
Nice. Well, great. Omar, this has been awesome. One last question for me. Where are you guys based?
We are in Paris right now, so
nice.
Come visit us.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. Great questions. As you can see, like this community like just dives right in.
I love it. It's incredible.
A lot of folks in the industry, but thanks for putting together that video. Glad we got to see it early after its launch. We also grateful for having seen demos and had those recorded on the podcast and on some of our other Zooms and things. But Omar, great to see you. Appreciate you being here. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. And good luck, everyone. Thank you for this wonderful chat. Bye.
Bye. So we have one more for you guys. I'd like to bring to stage the co-founder and CEO of Make, Stefan Heinrich. Come and join me. Hey, Stefan, how you doing?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Great to see you. I don't even know how to describe Make. It seems like you guys are at the cutting edge of the democratization of music making. It's in app form. You guys have AI in the mix, and you keep launching features or components that people are just taken by storm. But I'll let you take it to here. Take it from here. Thanks for being here, Stefan.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. As I said, Akiba would have loved to present today, but he feels sick, so you're gonna have to deal with me. Hi from Santa Monica and LA Tech Week. So I'm excited we're adding on this to like our LA Tech Week schedule. Really quick on us, we started the company now 3 years ago already. How time flies, early in the pandemic. Really going back to I think a lot of what we talked about already today, which is the desire of more people to make songs. I clearly had that since I was a teenager, and I bought my first Logic program for my first computer, and I could not figure it out when I was 14, and I could not figure it out still to use a DAW when I was over 30. And I said, like, wow, it's 20 years in between, and it looks like music tech still builds mostly for musicians. And while I'm coming from a musical family, I never tried to actually do what my parents said and learn an instrument, but like do the opposite. But I love karaoke and I love singing. And I think there's a lot of people like that who actually want to express themselves through songs. And for us, we come more like at it from like social media. I keep up with the spectacle classes at Snap. I worked at YouTube, and I learned Adobe Premiere and editing video, which I could actually master, but I could not do the same thing with a DAW. And then I worked at TikTok early on, and I saw how the video editor can become very, very simple, and anyone can be a YouTuber by using TikTok. And that same thing has just never happened in music. And I think it has been many, many attempts, and it's a big graveyard, but we're trying to have, I think the one thing I think we have is empathy with the beginner and the average fan or person in the world. And that's how we're trying to build for, to make it simple, fun, and playful. And as Dimitri said, we're trying that in many different ways. I think we have been wrong for the last 2 years that you can just build the TikTok for music, and that UGC songs can exist as UGC videos, like user generated. Because people can fuck up too much with a song. It's just not as easy as taking the camera out and putting a filter on it, and then you have something that you're proud of, or that your friend says, wow, that's so cool. And that's where AI comes in, because I think AI closes the quality gap that I would say 90% of the world that is not a musician probably has when it comes to like being able to use this fantastic medium for themselves. And that's what we're trying to do. So what I'm going to demo today, really quick, is just a little bit a journey of this year alone, of like the last 5 months in terms of how quick AI is moving. So these are all like prototypes that just show how quick AI music is moving from like January to now, just barely June. And I was like at an AI music event last night for LA Tech Week. And yeah, like as founders, I think it's very important to like pivot almost every 2 or 4 weeks now, because it's very unclear what is open source, where's the mode, where is it not. And so we're excited a little bit to like be close to like what's happening in culture and make that just more accessible for more people. So in that regard, we're going to be listening to a few songs, and I'm going to be talking about like how we did them in different ways. And then I also kind of like present, because I couldn't figure out the sound, which I feel happens a lot when I like interview audio engineers as well. Like I guess everyone who works in music tech has always problems with sound, so do I. So if you want to skip maybe 1 slide ahead, that'd be nice. And let's watch this.
Just calling, they wanna invest in a Drake, but not the real Drake. They want no mistakes. They want something to help them make the money stack. But I got something real, something better than a fake.
Okay,
Just calling, but I'm not gonna go. I got
you. So this was from January. So we launched like this before the big Drake weekend song blew up, which my suspicion is that it actually a hit maker or songwriter like wrote that song and it's only AI voice, but not really an AI song, because it's so good. And I think making hits is very hard. But this was like an attempt, like, yeah, like in January that just used like ChatGPT for like lyric generation. We used like our audio engine. So Make has an audio engine that we're actually starting to give more and more external companies and partners access to as well. So we built like the whole backend that like a GarageBand or a Ableton would have. I would always say like we have the whole missile systems, but we're just shooting fireworks and we're celebrating a quinceañera. But anyone who wants to actually use it a deeper way can do that, and we're happy to chat about that. But yeah, so it uses the Make engine, like our like beat library of community producers that made this possible. So let's jump on to, and this is pretty outdated, it's not that good anymore. So let's jump on to the next one that came maybe months later. So everyone has seen probably the trend of these AI deepfake covers floating around on social media. So this is an attempt to like productize it and make it even more accessible than just living in the Discord communities with people who like can't figure out how to train their own model. So here we have like an independent songwriter submit their song, and it's gonna be auto covered or auto karaoke by a rapper that you might have heard of.
I want you to drunk text me, saying you still need me. Tell me I'm not like her, I made you happy.
Drunk text me, saying you still need me. Tell me I'm not like her.
Yeah, so here we're using a lot of open source technologies, a lot of like community models that are out there and are floating around. So I think that's also like already not really an advantage anymore because it's so accessible and so many people can use it. But it's really interesting to see in general, like what does it mean for fan expression? How can songs be fan fiction? And how importantly can this help the industry, who's I think struggling with TikTok already, to make songs and artists hit and forces artists to be a video creator and not just a musician? How can this be an alternative where more and more fans get empowered to do the marketing or the social media for the artists? So I'm very excited for this whole scare around AI voice to be regulated and legitimized, and that every label marketer is going to pretty much soon see the big advantages and how it's going to drive streams and not take away from anything. Cool. The next thing I'm very excited about, because I think that is more unique to like what we do, which is give anyone a voice in the world. Like if people don't like their voice and are not that gifted or naturally talented. So this is me now with my own AI voice, and I really cannot sing, I promise, and I have not sung this. So you can listen to a song you all know, sung by me.
If I say I'm too late, got nothing in my brain. That's what people say. That's what people say. I don't want so many days, but I can't make them stay. At least that's what people say. That's what people say. Boy, I be closing. Can't stop, won't stop moving. Mistake I got this music. And in my mind saying it's gonna be alright. Cause the players on the play. And the hands on the hay. I'm just gonna shake. Let's take it out, let's take it out. Rhythm's on the break. And the papers on the break. I'm just gonna shake. Let's take it out, let's take it out.
Cool. So of course the audio production quality is not like super amazing yet, but it's still a prototype. And in the end, most people hear it on their phone without any speakers. So I guess it's good enough for that. But I think we're really leaving the last 20 years of, auto-tune, and we're moving into auto-sing now more and more with a lot of like voice synthesis work that we're doing on actually like giving young people or like anyone really like singing or rapping superhero powers. As I guess that's the last dimension to like move a space that I guess was disrupted 20 years ago with like bedroom EDM techno in Europe and hip hop in the US to like the next stage where not just prosumers can do it, but consumers can actually finally make their own songs. And then lastly, I'm going to show, I think there's a lot of like talk about like generative AI music, which we've never really touched the instrumental or the musical part because we've always been focused on voice. But it was an attempt because especially I think there's been a lot of controversy around like, can actually generative AI songs be good or not good? And most of them are like, nah, so far because it's still early days. But I think we're getting closer and closer. So I was excited to maybe show one example where literally like everything was generated, including a melody. And we're working closely with like hit makers who have made hits for a long time, who catch themselves more and more also using ChatGPT and all that tools, or like the young people that work with them. And I think there's a few, I think it's very split space. Some people embrace it, some others don't, as everything new. But this uses lots of tricks that lots of pop hit makers have been using for a long time. And so let's have a look. The English is not perfect, so just imagine.
Lost in the stream, trapped in a dream, melodic facade, holes in my mind, love undefined, remains wide. Bittersweet and fun and liquid dead flame. A one-sided fantasies, cruel games. I'm falling for an air of this neither real cutting. It's wishing the same, wishing we can steal her out the circumstance, captivating my soul, but we can be together. I must in this one.
So yeah, that is a quick demo of the state of the art where we are at right now when it comes to like helping more people make their own songs. But if I compare this to like all the UGC songs I made, like it's day and night already within a few months. I'm very excited for this year in general for the space.
Super cool, Stefan. Thanks so much for sharing that. You mind if I ask you one question before we wrap?
Yeah.
So we saw the embodiment instrument, and we had that question from Sam Freeman about who's this for? Is this top end musicians? Is this everyday artists? And then you introduce all this crazy stuff, which is like a whole other market. And the thing that I don't think anybody knows the answer to, but I really want your perspective because you guys are building stuff really quickly. It's really light to use. Get started. It almost feels like a musical emoji or a social share before it's a professional song or anything like that. It sounds like in your head, things are going to go towards more and more closer to a professional song with AI generated stuff. But do you think that these songs that'll be created over time by the future mate or whatever it is are going to compete with what we listen to on our everyday playlists, our Discover Weeklies and things like that? Or is it a new category? Is this expanding the market or is this market converging over time?
Yeah, great question. I think it's totally additive and I think it's a new layer. So I think what is happening now is the top is going to stay the top 1 or 10% who is like getting most of it anyway. The whole middle class of music, I think is going to be really hard because everything is blending from like epidemic sound to just good is not good enough, great music on Spotify, to like boomy or like any like new like full-on AI native music. But we're introducing basically the UGC layer that just didn't exist at the very end, which is like, I would call it niche music or meme music or personal songs. And they're like not meant to compete on Spotify. I don't even see, like young people don't use Spotify anymore, right? Like they barely use TikTok or rather Roblox or Discord to like discover music. So this music is not meant for DSP or streaming. This music is meant for also not many people to listen to, but it's really meant for, okay, do I like it? And do like 10 friends of my friends group like it? Or does, when I make a song about a specific niche that no artist would make a song about, which is like that I like vegan pizza or that I like karate, because it would be way below an artist to make a song like that. Usually like kids will make these songs and the communities will embrace like, you know, fan music in that kind of way. And maybe lastly, like comment on that. This has proven what like so clear between like Netflix and TikTok too, right? Like there is a moment where you want to watch Netflix and you want to like get a full like professionally produced great show. And sometimes you just want little bites and snacks from other people like you. And I think the same thing is kind of happening with music. It was just the last medium, and because it's the hardest, it seems to actually get to that point. And I think what's interesting, where like, you know, we went from Hollywood to YouTube to TikTok. With music, it seems we're skipping straight from music Hollywood or indie music. We're skipping the TikTok phase straight into AI music. which at least like what we're seeing, it seems like is what's needed. So fans can actually make their own songs.
Thank you for taking the time to answer that. I think it's on a lot of people's minds, and I'm really interested to hear your perspective. And thanks so much for the demo, showing us what you're up to. Great to have you at Seismic Activity. Appreciate it, Stefan. Okay, so guys, a couple things. Make sure to RSVP for our next event. You can find it at musictectonics.com/online events. It's called Startups, Start Your Engines, Music Tech Lessons Learned, and Narwhal Kickoff. It's the kickoff of the Swimming with Narwhals. It's Music Tectonics annual Music Tech Startup Competition. We would love for any of you who are building stuff to jump into the mix. It's a low bar to enter, and we've had some great winners in the past. It's basically a chance to get spotlighted by the Music Tectonics community and to get on the radar of investors who are our judges for that as well. So come to that event. It is June 7th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UK. Not sure what time it is in India, but you can do the math there. And I'd like to remind you that early bird badges for the Music Tectonics Conference happening October 24th to 36th in Santa Monica, California are on sale now. We sold out of our super early bird limited tickets for you, so make sure to get yours now before the price rises. Again, that's at musictectonics.com/conference. You've seen Shaylee here on the Seismic events. If you want to be a partner, be a sponsor of Music Tectonics, reach out to Shaylee at rockpaperscissors.biz and she can send you a deck. Thanks to all of our presenters today, Omar, Stefan, James, Russ, Tim, and Tristra. Shout out to Shaylee and Eleanor and Ryan on the Music Tectonics team for making this an awesome event. And keep an eye out for those newsletters from Eleanor. If you want to talk about rock, paper, scissors, and PR for your music tech company, talk to me or Travis Feaster, who's here as well. We'd love to help you guys build what you're doing, build your story, and amplify it as well. And that's it.